Good evening. Hello. It's Sharona. You're watching The Extra Point by Sharona and the National Gridiron Network. We come to you live every Friday night, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time via the National Gridiron Network, www.nationalgridironnetwork.com. Be sure to jump on there and check out all the great content that's being produced. I am joined by Brad Hill, who was presented to me as the only Jaguars fan in California. Brad, thanks for joining me, and thanks to Zach Law, my buddy, for hooking us up. I'm so happy to be talking to you.
I'm glad to be here too. I'm hoping I can make it an hour talking to a Titans fan.
I told Brad before the show started. Sharona was a little unhappy with the Titans draft this year and had not worn any Titans gear until now. Sharona is rocking some Titans gear just for Brad. This is solely for Brad, and happy to have him here. Brad, you have not. We're very early acquaintances, so you have not had the benefit of listening to me. I am a big fan of what's going on in Jacksonville. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the right track. I really love Gus Bradley. He comes from that Seattle tradition. What are your thoughts, before we get to the draft, what are your thoughts on Gus Bradley, the new general manager, and the direction that the Jaguars seem to be in?
Well, when they first started the hiring process last year, we were all pretty sold on Tom Gamble, the 49ers ex. I think he was a head of personnel or something like that. So we all thought that was going to happen. And then once they hired Tom Gamble, it was going to be Greg Roman as the head coach. They were going to have San Francisco run-based offense, and we were all kind of just booking that as a done deal. When Dave Caldwell got hired, it kind of threw us off a little bit, but that was pretty much everybody's second choice because the reports were it was going to be, when it got down to it, one of Caldwell or Steve Keim, the guy that the Cardinals hired.
Right.
And, looking at the offensive personnel that those two guys had assembled, we were a lot bigger fans of Caldwell. And if you look at the Jaguars' offense over the last decade or so, you can see why we would be looking for more offense. So we were all pretty happy with Caldwell. Since he hadn't really steered us wrong at all, and so that was the first major decision, and we didn't have any reason to doubt him yet. I can say right now we still don't. So then the head coaching process went from there, and we really didn't have any idea what to expect from that because Caldwell didn't have a whole lot of head coach candidates on Mike Smith's staff in Atlanta that we expected him to poach. So it was just pretty much a big mystery. When they hired Bradley, the last I had heard of him was that he was probably going to be the guy in Philadelphia until Chip Kelly got snagged. And from what I heard from Eagles fans, I have a couple friends who are Cowboys fans, and so they know some Eagles guys. Really excited about the hire before it actually didn't happen, but they thought it was a done deal, and they were excited. On Twitter, there were plenty of Eagles fans that were excited that Bradley was going to be the guy, and so we were kind of secondhand excited. We didn't really know a whole lot about him.
Right.
When he first showed up on our screens in the press conference, it was pretty obvious why he was the guy. He has probably more energy than any guy I've ever met. It's contagious too.
Yeah.
I had a job previously, and the manager of the company was one of those guys that would give you a 5 to 10 minute speech, and you would walk away from that meeting feeling like you could sell something to anybody. And Gus Bradley seems like that kind of guy for football. If you're in the huddle with him, if you're in the meeting room with him, it'll take you a couple of minutes, but within those couple of minutes, you're going to be ready to jump out on the field, run out with your pads on. There have been writers who have echoed that same thing also. Yeah. That he's kind of motivational person. I think the thing I like is that it doesn't seem like it's just for show. It seems like he really does care about the guys on the roster. He cares about giving them a fair shot too. It's not just lip service, because I know there are some coaches who they'll say that they're going to give a guy a fair shot to win a job, and then they really don't actually get that chance.
Right.
And so like he's been willing to give people a fair shot to win jobs on the field based on performance instead of other factors.
I completely agree with you. He is so much fun to watch. His players love him. Uncle Gus, they do. They love him. You can tell that they love playing for him. He has brought in some former Seahawks, Will Blackman, among others. That's just the name that came off the top of my head. I think that I liked the former coach Mike Mularkey. I didn't think that he was the biggest problem that Jacksonville had. I thought that their GM needed to go. Um, Rick Smith, I believe, was his name, and yeah,
Yeah.
and so, but when you're cleaning house, sometimes it's just better to start all over. And I definitely think that they got the right guy in Gus Bradley, and it's I think that. They're going to be very satisfied with him. I like the GM. They're making some good moves. Before we get to the draft, I want to say that I want to get your thoughts on this. I really loved their offseason. I think Toby Gerhart is going to be very good in that offense. Not a lot of wear on his tires, but when he has gotten, and you would expect that. I mean, the guy sitting behind Adrian Peterson's not going to get that many opportunities. But boy, when he did get his opportunities, he made the most of them. So to me, he's an exciting guy, and I already told Brad this. I actually drafted him in my dynasty league because I think that he's got 3 or 4 good years still left in him.
Well, I am a fan of the Gerhardt signing also, partially because I like guys who put up numbers in college, who have great measurables, and who don't have a lot of wear on their tires. He's already, I believe, 27, but he really hasn't had very many carries in his
He
career.
hasn't.
If you look at his combine measurables, he actually comes out very similarly to Steven Jackson. And that's not a comparison a lot of people make. I think some people hesitate to try to compare running backs to him just because of the whole stigma behind the white running back.
He is. Yeah, I predicted he would probably get about 20, 25 touches a game. What do you think? Yeah. What are the other moves? What are the other moves that they made that you liked in free agency? Right. Right. It does. Did you like them bring? Did you like them bringing back Jason Babbins? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, if anything, Seattle has kind of proven that having a lot of good pass rushers really helps. And Cincinnati, a lot of other teams have shown that as well. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the draft because I definitely want to get your opinion. I was shocked that the Jacksonville Jaguars selected Blake Bortles at number three. Now, over number three overall. Now, I'm not saying that it was a bad move. I'm just saying that I personally was shocked when it happened. What was your reaction when that selection was made? Yeah, you're prophetic, Brad. You're yes. The DraftNet community. Right. Yeah, I don't think that those two are mutually exclusive. I would point to Jadavion Clowney as an example of that, but I agree with you with your proposition, what you just said. Um, I have given them a very good grade on that move, and I will tell you why. First of all, I am a big fan of teams that show balls and say this is our guy, we like this guy. We're not afraid to go out and get him. And I completely agree with you that they think Blake Bortles has the most potential, and then they're probably right. I would tend to agree with that. I am with the guys that you mentioned. I liked Teddy Bridgewater the best of all of these quarterbacks. Now, I would have probably put Blake Bortles in front of Johnny Manziel. I'm not a big believer in Johnny Manziel's game translating to the NFL. I thought he was a great college quarterback, but I've got questions about him. But nevertheless, that's who the Jacksonville Jaguars decided was their guy. They went and got him, and big ups to them for doing that. I have said, you can feel free to disagree with me. I have said that it would not shock me whatsoever. And I like Chad Henne. I do. I watched Chad Henne beat the Tennessee Titans as a member of the Miami Dolphins back in 2010. I was actually at that game. So I like Chad Henne, but I can totally see this coaching staff getting in training camp and going, Chad Henne, Blake Bortles, Chad Henne, and the temptation to maybe see what they have in Blake Bortles in his first year. What do you think? Yeah. Right. Yeah. I would call it pocket awareness. I never understood that, and I'm not hating on Blaine Gabbert, but I never ever understood that. I mean, I know that it probably wasn't the best class to be selecting a quarterback, but I never understood that particular decision, and it certainly proved to be fatal for the Jaguars during his tenure. I thought that they made a very good move, getting something out of him and making that trade. So I suppose that there is that. What would you say? Well, let me back up and say this. The thing that I said about the temptation to start him was that the first four games that the Jags are going to be playing are against defenses that are all that good. I think Washington, Philadelphia, the Colts are in there, and I forget who the other team is. And so for me, if you're going to give him that start, your incentive to do it is in front of a team that doesn't really scare you defensively. So um, I could totally see it happening. It will be fun to see that how that plays out, because either way, whether it's Chad Henne or whether it's Blake Bortles, we've already talked about the fact that they're going to try to rely on us. They're going to go by the Seattle model: strong defense and strong running game. Don't you think? Oh yeah, yeah, there are. I think that's a completely fair point. If you had any doubt that the Jags were going to go offense, it was quickly weren't going to go offense. I mean, it was quickly put to the aside with their next two draft picks, both wide receivers. I'm going to let you talk about those two, but I will give you a hint. I like the second selection a little bit more than I like the first. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I would agree with that. Definitely. That's what I would have said. Yeah. The thing about Marcus Lee that that troubles me, and I've been accused of being a USC hater because of Lane Kiffin. It's not true. Well, maybe it's sort of true. Um, I just have concerns about USC skill players because traditionally, at least over the past 6, 7, 8 years, they've been horrible. Reggie Bush was probably, well, depending on how you view how Robert Woods did last year, and Robert Woods, I thought, had a pretty nice season for a rookie. But before that, I think you have to go back to Reggie Bush and then Carson Palmer to find a guy from USC, a skill guy from USC that's really on the offensive side of the ball that's really done well, and his hands can see some other things. You mentioned Cecil Shorts. I really love Cecil Shorts. I think that he's a good wide receiver, and I'm kind of excited to see what he does with some help. He had Justin Blackman for a little while. Is not going to have Justin Blackman at all this year. Are the Jags going to move on? They haven't officially released him, I don't think. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, really kind of a sad situation. When he got in trouble the last time, he said all the right things. You thought, maybe he finally gets it. Having dealt with people with it's very common to get that. I think that he definitely has an addictive issue. He's got an addictive personality. I hope that he's getting the help that he pretty clearly needs. It would not shock me at all if the Jags don't move on, and certainly they would be very justified in doing so. Maybe they don't want to because they want to give him something to work for, something to hang on to give him, that little bit of incentive to make that step back. And so, good luck to you, Justin Blackman. I hope that you're able to overcome whatever demons it is that you have. Allen Robinson, the wide receiver from Penn State, was a guy that I had on my radar. A big, tall, strong wide receiver, good hands. I thought that the Jags did really, really well getting him. It was a good value pick. He's a good wide receiver. I think that he's going to be really. He may ultimately end up being the better pick between the two. That's my opinion. What have other Jags writers said about it? They are. Yeah. Mhm. I'm so shocked that they haven't done that. I, Yeah, I really love Mercedes Lewis, by the way. I think that he's a great tight end, a big guy. I mean, he's huge, he's big, he has nice soft hands. I don't understand how they, the lack of use of him and the way that they have utilized him. I would hope that they would definitely change that, give him more opportunities. I think that he's great. What do you think is going to happen with Denard Robinson? Now, as I recall, he has small hands. Isn't that correct? Which is not good. That's not optimum. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I had high hopes for him as well. Didn't You just didn't see much out of him. The third round pick, Brandon Linder, was a guard from Miami. Shoring up the trenches is always a good thing. It should. I completely agree. Right. Yeah. 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 It was. mm, Yeah, it was another bit of a surprise pick. Although I understand. What is your prediction for the starting offensive line this year? Right. I am so sorry. I was gonna ask you about the former Vol. I was gonna ask you about the former Vol. Yeah, I was curious about this. I was curious about the center position. Brad Meester anchored that offensive line for so long. As I recall, made an offensive play against the Tennessee Titans last year, showing a little bit of a skill. But he has retired, and so they're obviously going to be trying to replace him. Yeah. He did. He looked fun, and he looks like he's enjoying retirement, and we definitely wish him all the best in retirement. Your next pick, Aaron Colvin, a cornerback from Oklahoma. What are your thoughts on that? That's the fourth round pick, by the way. On the pup, the PUP list. Sure. Yep. Yep. They've got a nice nice little secondary already, so he definitely has the time to heal up and learn the system. And I completely agree with you. I thought it was a nice pick as well. We are getting ready to talk about the third pick that Sharona had a little bit of a draft crush on, and therefore she rated this pick very highly for you. And that is, of course, Telvin Smith, the linebacker slash safety from Florida State. I'm very curious to hear how you feel about this and where you think he might play. Yeah. Oh, I think we've lost your sound, Brad. Uh-oh. Uh, I can't hear you. Maybe you should come out and come back in. While you do that, I'm going to send you, I'll get you a new, there we go. Come out and come back in, and I bet you'll be just fine. I sent you another invite. While Brad is doing that, I want to say, first of all, Sharona really, really likes Telvin Smith, and if he does play linebacker, I don't really have much issue with that. There was a lot of talk about him needing to bulk up, and he is a little bit on the light side for a linebacker in the NFL. I definitely think, oh, there you go. I can hear you now.
You can? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No. It happens. Stuff like that happens. Just so you know, I was just talking about the fact that he's just a little bit on the lean side, and the general consensus is that he needs to bulk up just a little bit. I think that he can. There was some talk that maybe his frame would not allow him to do that. I disagree with that. I think that he can bulk up. I think he's very much a guy that you can allow to roam a little bit, the kind of roamer type linebacker. He is very good in coverage. I'm so excited to watch him play, and I don't care whether it's for the Jaguars or not. Look, I'm a fan of good football players, and I think this guy is a good football player. And I'm kind of excited to get to see him up close and personal at least one time per year.
Yeah, I think that part of the issue with the size thing, and a lot of people thought he might move to safety. There's not a really spot for him at safety with Jaguars either, because Jonathan Cyprien is the strong safety, and I think they love him going forward as that starter. I don't think there's really a spot for another guy to try to play the same spot. They might use him kind of as a roving in the box safety might be used, but he still would essentially be a linebacker. Supposedly the Jags are going to run some of that 46 defense that the Bears ran back in the 80s. Where you run 8 guys in the box, and then you have 1 safety up top and 2 corners out. But it's essentially, I think it's like 4 linebackers, and so he would be the coverage guy in that group.
Do they ever run a 3 safety package?
Yes, they run a lot of that actually. But usually when they run the 3 safety spot, they actually are putting another free safety out there. It's not another box guy. They did it a lot last year, and Chris Krasinski got some reps in that spot, and he failed pretty much every time. Winston Guy was starting to get some run in that spot, and I like him a lot more than Krasinski if it comes down to one roster spot between those two, it's definitely going to be Guy. I think Guy actually has a chance to start over Josh Evans.
Okay.
But Evans, Guy, and Cyprian are probably the three you're looking at in that package. One other interesting option for them there is an undrafted guy, Rashad Reynolds from Oregon State, that they picked up as an undrafted free agent. I think they're looking to make a versatile secondary piece so that they can move around anywhere. I heard he had been playing some nickel corner at camp, but also potentially taking a few reps at safety. So that would be a guy to look at as well. And then Alan Ball also has played safety in his career. I know he played some safety. He was a really solid addition at corner last year, so I know they're not looking to move him off the position, but if enough players at corner step up to give him the flexibility to maybe move back in some plays, then they might be able to do that also.
Well, it sounds like they've got a lot of options, and that's always a good thing to have. Again, a good player, very versatile. I'm kind of excited to see what they do with him. The next pick, Chris Smith. Chris Smith. I like this pick as well. Defensive end from Arkansas, the second of the 5th round picks.
Smith, I think, is a guy, and he's the second Smith in a row, so maybe they had a thing for Smiths in this draft, but he seems like a player that they want to build into pass rusher instead of him already being a really good pass rusher. I think and I had a couple of people that I follow had stated that they felt like he was not a very good pass rusher this year at all. But that's a similar situation to what you see when you watch Blake Bortles' film. You're not looking at necessarily what are the stats, what did this guy do exactly against this player. Maybe you're looking more at how did he use his hands, how did he bend around the corner,
Right.
What leverage does he get, is he strong, that kind of stuff. And I figured it's a 5th round pick. This guy's got some talent that we can mold. Let's get him in the hands of Gus and the defensive staff and see if they can turn him into a player. And if not, no big deal. It's a 5th round pick. You know, you're starting to get into the shot in the territory anyway.
Well, Gus comes from a system that has really made the most of their 5th round draft picks. So, who knows, right?
Exactly. I know Richard Sherman was a 5th rounder in Seattle, so that
Wasn't Cam Chancellor as well?
I think he might have been. I don't remember as much.
Yeah.
I know Sherman was a 5th because they really wanted him.
Yeah, he definitely was.
I don't know if you followed the Mach 1 Twitter mock drafts at any point in the past.
I have.
That is actually where I met Zach Law during the Mach 1 draft. So the year that Sherman was drafted, I actually picked him for the Jaguars in the 7th round.
There you go.
So,
well, that's pretty, yeah.
I would like to turn that into real life. Obviously, it doesn't work that way. But
Well,
I don't think I outdrafted them a couple of the years, and I think I did outdraft them a couple of weeks. I took Christian Ponder for them the year that he came out, but I also traded down the 20s to do it. So,
okay.
I think Chris Smith is more of a future type pick than a now type pick. I definitely know he's going to be behind Clemens and Jason Babin in the pass rushing queue. I also think they might try to get some pass rush out of Dakota Watson, the linebacker that they signed. I think they see him as kind of a hybrid, maybe to fit in that pass rusher role, the Leo that they call it, the Leo end.
Right.
So I'm not sure that Smith will even see the field. He might be the kind of guy that you're going to see on that inactives list every time you pull up Roto World on Sunday morning.
Well, that wouldn't be a bad thing, a developmental guy that you can allow to grow and learn. There's a lot to be said for that. I'm probably going to butcher this next guy, your 6th round draft pick, Luke Bowanko.
I think it's Bowanko or Bowanko. I'm actually not sure either. That's another guy I had not heard of before they took him, and I think that this is the only center that we see as a guy that could potentially become a player for us down the road, and we want a center. And if you look at the centers on the roster, I don't blame them for wanting a center either, because there's not a whole lot of depth. Brewster hasn't really played well in the NFL yet either, so I know he's got some potential. I loved him coming out of Ohio State, so I think he just needs to get stronger. But I know they want Bowanko to push him, and so that's going to be a legit battle. I mean, I know he's a 6th rounder, but if he outplays Brewster, he will start over him.
All right, and the last draft pick, oh, hello, I don't know what happened there. The last draft pick, Blake Bortles' teammate at UCF, and Storm Johnson, a guy that has one of the best football names I've ever heard. I really like this draft pick as well. I thought that, great numbers at UCF, and I think he's going to be a good developmental guy as well. What do you think?
I love his potential also. Measurables-wise, he actually seems kind of similar to Toby Gerhardt.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about him is a couple of years ago, he actually transferred to Central Florida from Miami, and I remember and who are also Miami friends, and my Twitter feed would just blow up with Storm Johnson tweets, and it was weird because I didn't know who the guy was, and then he transferred, and I didn't hear anything about him anymore because there's a lot less Central Florida guys. But he seems like a back that they think could potentially be a starter, even though he's a 7th-round pick. I know a lot of people had him rated higher than that, a lot of sites.
They did, yeah.
And people, the DraftNet community, as we decided it was earlier, they liked him better than that also. And I think that's going to be one of the top sleeper picks for a lot of people. I think they think he's a powerful back who maybe can catch passes down the road. I know he's not now. So if he does get on the field, it's definitely not going to be on 3rd down passing situations where he's expected to pick up blitzers. That's really not going to be where you see him. I think he's more likely to be a rotational guy. Maybe Gerhardt's gotten 5 carries in a row and it's time to get somebody else in there. That's his role as a rookie, but I think they think he might be a starter down the road. He's definitely got the potential to do that. That's the kind of pick I like to take in the 7th round besides the injured flyers are guys that you think have a ton of potential that maybe have fallen due to fumbles or due to other injury problems, or maybe they have personality concerns, like Derek Rogers that the Colts picked up in undrafted free agency a couple years ago.
Right.
That's a player that has tons of potential and just fell for whatever reason. Those are the perfect guys to take there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, grade time. Give me your overall grade, and I know, and everybody knows this, full disclaimer, useless at this point in time, but still fun. Give me your grade.
Well, there were some picks I thought were great values. I loved the Lee and Robinson picks. I was a big fan of Telvin Smith. I love Storm Johnson as a value pick. There were also a couple guys I felt like might have been reaches. Brandon Linder, like we discussed. I didn't even know who Luke Polanco was when they picked him. I mean, it's the 6th. And then obviously Bortles was kind of a question mark as well. So I got to say I'd give it a B to a B plus, something in that range. I can't, in good conscience, give a draft an A where I wasn't jumping up off the couch excited about the number 3 overall pick. But I do think he's got the potential to make it an A draft. It's just going to depend on what he turns into.
Right.
But as of right now, given the value that they got out of the picks, I like the maneuvering up to get guys that you know aren't going to fall to your next pick or very much think won't fall to your next pick. That's what, if you start the draft with 11 picks, that's what you need to use those for, is to go get the guys you need. Because 11 rookies were not going to make this roster. Or at least I didn't think so until I saw the undrafted class. Now I think 13 could make it.
Right. Well, the Jags are definitely in the process of turning their roster over. They've been very hampered by past decisions and needed to do that. If you had to rank where the Jags did and relative to the other teams in the division, how would you? And I'll just go ahead and say my rankings were Jags, Texans, Colts, Titans.
I think that's very fair. I do know that I think there's a big gap between Jags and Texans at the top and Colts and Titans at the bottom. I think there's a big split. I've been very unimpressed with Ryan Grigson's drafting in Indianapolis. He had Andrew Luck essentially handed to him, and then he's just kind of stacked the roster with question mark guys. I don't understand what there works for. You got Andrew Luck, you're going to be fine. For now, at least. We'll see what happens in the long term when the other teams get better. This draft was kind of a mystery to me. They always seem to pick guys that I don't know what they're going to do with. I think
that's fair.
I don't remember all the guys that they took this year, but I do remember feeling like they didn't really address a couple of their needs. I know they needed a receiver. Kendall Wright's a good player, but I know Britt had been a problem. for a while, and there isn't really a whole lot of depth there past Nate Washington. So I don't know who's going to catch the ball. That doesn't help. And then I also felt like they kind of needed, I don't know if Jake Locker is the guy to go forward with, but I don't know that there was really anything that made sense to pick. But Mettenberger seems like one of those lead-foot, stuck-in-mud kind of quarterbacks that can't really move around, maybe kind of a Ryan Mallett type of guy. And I'm not sure if that works for the way that the NFL is functioning right now, because it's not really a seven-step drop deep ball kind of offense league right now. So I'm not sure if he might develop into a guy that can make shorter finesse throws, or if he's just kind of that big-armed injury prone. I don't know. He's kind of a mystery. But I like their draft in the Indies for sure. I think Indy just dropped the ball. Texans and Jags are very close together for me. I know Clowney will make any draft class look better. I think 100% Jacksonville would have taken Clowney if he fell to 3, but I also think there's no chance that was going to happen. I'm not a big Tom Savage fan, but they took a couple other guys that I was mad at. They're usually good picks. I can't remember who there was a defensive tackle that fell to him in the 3rd round, and I had thought the Jags were going to move up. It was Lewis Nix, that's who it was. So I thought Jacksonville was going to move up. When they moved to Robinson, I actually thought that they were picking Lewis Nix there. I was sold that was Lewis Nix. And so Nix went to the Texans, and that bummed me out. That bummed out feelings the same as when the Colts drafted Ty Hilton, who we really wanted. In fact, any Jags fan who says they wanted Russell Wilson when they took Brian Anger is lying. We all wanted Ty Hilton. Or T.Y. Hilton, I'm sorry. Not Ty. We all wanted Hilton.
I think some people do call him that, but yeah, it's T.Y. Yeah, it's it is curious. They make big moves in free agency. Their draft has not been. I liked the Dwayne Allen pick. Of course, he was injured last year, wasn't able to play. Kobe Fleener, I think, is very inconsistent. He's definitely going to have to do a lot better this year. Their first-round pick, the linebacker/DE, I liked his teammate, Tank Carradine, a lot better than I did him. I thought they overdrafted him. So, yeah, it's the division, to me, seems to be far more open lately than it has been. The Colts have definitely capitalized on a weaker division. Everybody thought the Texans were going to be the Cinderella team, the big team out of the division. Of course, their quarterback situation was bad, and I don't know that it's that much better now. And I like Ryan Fitzpatrick, but is Ryan Fitzpatrick, is he better than Matt Schaub?
He's different. I don't know that he's better. They're both guys that'll make questionable decisions. Fitzpatrick has a little more creativity and able to run around, but Schaub also has a bit better track record. He was kind of done there. He wasn't going to be getting anything done in Houston. I think the fans had kind of turned on him at that point.
They had turned on him.
I don't know that Fitzpatrick's the answer either, but this isn't really a division where you have to have a quarterback that's the answer to make it to the playoffs. You just have to have a defense that's good enough plays. This is very well might be the worst division in football right now.
Yeah, it's definitely been not a very good few seasons for the AFC South. I completely agree with that. Who are some of your winners in the AFC, Brad? My winners were the Jags were in there. Let's see let me pull up my my list here of who I thought were the winners. Who were your winners?
Well, I don't have a list. No, I was a pretty big fan of the Raiders picks. I think that instead of going for weird values and trying, they previously had gone with. It seemed like they had the Gene Smith smartest kid in the class syndrome, where Reggie McKenzie was picking guys that he thought he had found, and maybe other people hadn't found that guy and rated him as highly. And instead of just letting your scouting speak to itself. And this year, I think they were able to pick guys that are going to help their team a lot more. I loved Khalil Mack. I think Derek Carr maybe isn't the best prospect, but he's also not far from the worst. And they haven't had a quarterback who can actually complete some balls in a while. He'll definitely put shot. I know Gabe Jackson, the guard, is a guy that a lot of people liked. He could possibly start for them his rookie year. He's a power blocking guy, and they recently went back to power blocking system. So I liked the Raiders draft. I can't think of a whole lot of other teams that I was a huge fan of in the AFC. I liked a bunch of NFC teams. I was a big fan of the Rams draft. I like San Francisco's draft, just like always. I hate that I like it because I hate that team, but they're at drafting, and I hate it. So the AFC, I like Cleveland picking Manziel was interesting. There's more just interesting picks in the AFC than guys I thought were huge, big time values. You could almost say that the Texans and Jags might have been 1 and 2.
Yeah, I can't find my document. I agree with you. The Raiders had a nice draft. Kind of surprisingly, the Jags were in there. I liked what the Texans did. I tell you, I will say this. I thought that I liked the Steelers taking Ryan Shazier. Big fan of that guy. And I liked what the Ravens did. The Ravens, I thought, of course, they traditionally draft very well, and I loved C.J. Mosley, and I liked that draft pick. So those were kind of my winners in the NFC. Who did you like in the NFC? I liked what the Bears did. I recall that. I thought the Bears had a very, very nice draft.
Bears was interesting. Vikings, I was a big fan of. Anthony Barr is a guy that I know Mike Zimmer is going to use him in all types of different positions. Right after the draft, he said he's going to be playing all over the field. Going into the draft, if I had the first overall pick, I would have picked Teddy Bridgewater. So obviously,
Yeah.
like that, 32. I'm not really sure who else they picked, but
It really is. I completely agree on both counts. The Packers always draft well. I thought that they had another nice draft. They got Aaron Rodgers, some more wide receivers, and you start calling that wide receiver um, mecca, right? Yep. Yep. They do. They get lucky. They do. Yeah. Yeah, well, Brad, the hour always goes by so fast. I hope that you'll come back and talk some more Jacksonville Jaguars with me. I really have enjoyed it. Tell everybody where they can find you. And you've written for Bleacher Report. Are you going to be doing that again, hopefully? Completely understandable. Oh, that's sad. It is a lot of work. Well, we will definitely set that up then as training camps start to roll on. I am Sharona. You can follow me on Twitter at Sports by Sharona. This is the Extra Point every Friday night, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time from the National Gridiron Network, www.nationalgridironnetwork.com. Have a very great Friday evening, and we'll catch you next week.